Hey everyone, it's Carissa Wiley from sprinkledwithglitter.com. Thanks for joining me today. Today I am sharing this beautiful card that was inspired by a shirt that my friend and I saw on this very beautiful lady at a Starbucks. And it features the known and loved stamps, dies, and coordinating layering stencils, and I'm going to be creating this beautiful wreath. And as I mentioned, this was inspired by a shirt. So I really wanted to talk to you as I do my stenciling today about places to find inspiration. And so we're going to be talking through that today. I'm starting out with my Mini Misty here, and I have my wreath stamp mounted on the lid of my Mini Misty. And I'm stamping this wreath in the Rocky Slope ink from Pinkfresh Studio. Now, I wanted a nice gray ink. I didn't want it too light, but I knew I didn't want black either because I wanted to keep this a little bit on the softer side. And I am double stamping this because this stamp is brand new out of the package, and I wanted to make sure I got a really nice stamped impression. Now, when I work with my layering stencils, I really like to work in my Misty, and that's because I can hold the pieces and the stencils in place with my magnets and also this sticky mat that I'm using here. This is a tip I got from Jennifer McGuire. This is a replacement cutting mat for a silhouette that I've cut down to fit inside of my Misty, and that's going to help me hold my items in place. Now, I have my layering stencils here, and I'm just trying to show you here, up in the corner of your layering stencils, there will be a number. It's kind of hard to see in the video here, but I'm taking the number 1 stencil. I'm positioning my stamped cardstock onto my sticky mat. You see, it's going to hold it in place. And then I'm going to place my stencil over the top of it. Now, to hold this in place even more, just to be sure, I'm going to use my bar magnets to hold that down as well. And now I'm going to start my stenciling. And I have picked my color palette based on, as I mentioned before, a shirt that I saw on a lady on Valentine's Day. And my friend and I were in the Starbucks, and this beautiful girl caught our eye, and she was like, "You should make a card based on the colors in her shirt." And so that's what I've done today. I've pulled out Ballet slipper, I've pulled out coral reef, passion fruit, and then I've pulled out Seaside and Storm for my blues. Oh, and I also used candy apple. So I'm working my way through these layering stencils, but as I mentioned before, you guys have seen this a few times with going through the layering stencil and ink blending. I wanted to talk about places to find inspiration because a lot of times as card makers, we think about inspiration and we think copying another person's card design, and that's really not what inspiration is all about. In this case, this lady had on this beautiful shirt that had these red florals with blue flowers and a pink background. And I find that if I take like an article of clothing or a piece of artwork and I take the ideas and the color palettes from those items, I don't find myself falling into the trap of just recreating something that somebody's already created. So in this case, I'm taking the idea that the florals were red and the leaves were blue and the background on this shirt was pink. Now, clothing is a great place to find inspiration, but photography is another great area to find inspiration, and even home decor. So as you're looking for ideas for cards to create, look at art, look at photography, look at clothing and fashion and home decor, and find the big stories in those elements to help you tell your next story on your card. This is going to keep you from falling into that trap of wanting to just recreate something. Now, it's not bad to recreate something that somebody has already created, unless you're sharing it and you're claiming that as your own design. That's a problem. But I think it springs so much more creativity when we take an idea and we run with that idea rather than just recreating a card. Now, I have to confess that when we were in the Starbucks and we saw this beautiful lady with the beautiful shirt, I had to take a picture of the shirt and I didn't want to look like a creeper. So my friend posed in front of her so that I could take a picture of her in the background and kind of remember her shirt. These are the crazy things we do for inspiration, but I thought the shirt was a great place to find inspiration. And like I mentioned before, it keeps me from wanting to kind of follow along the same lines of a card that somebody else has created. Now, a lot of times, if I am inspired by a card that somebody else has created, I will take an element of that card, maybe the way they used foil or maybe their color palette, and I will switch up the stamps and the dies that I'm using and the layout to make sure that I'm not creating a direct copy. Now, another trick that I have is if I see a card that inspires me, I may try to go by memory when I create a card that's inspired by that previous card. So I won't go back and look at it and study it. I'll just remember, like, maybe it had a really pretty ink blended background, and that's what I want to do. And just by keeping that one element in my memory and not going back and looking at that card before I create something that's inspired by that card will kind of force me to create my own creation and not recreate someone else's. So I hope these tips for finding inspiration are helpful for you. I have gone ahead and colored in my wreath using those layering stencils. I love the color palette. I have die cut some of the brand new Curvy leaves from some vellum, and I've ink blended a panel using some Ballet slipper ink, and then I die cut it using the Essential diagonal stitched rectangles from Pinkfresh Studio. Then I went ahead and cut my wreath out of some heavyweight white cardstock 4 times. So I'm going to stack this wreath up to create some dimension and create a real presence for this wreath on the card. Now, if you don't want to do all this die cut layering, you could use foam adhesive as well. But I really like to do the die cut layering from time to time because it gives you this really solid, almost chipboard-like embellishment that you can place on your card. So I have these die cuts. I'm just adding some liquid glue and I'm stacking them on top of each other. I kind of use my fingers to push the edges into alignment, and I really like to use liquid adhesive for things like this so that I can make sure everything gets lined up properly. Now, in addition to all the die cutting, stamping, and ink blending that I've done, I also stamped a sentiment from the Known and Loved stamp set. And it says, "Through it all, it is well." And I love this sentiment. It is actually lyrics to a song that I really love. You can look it up if you want to. But I thought this would be a great card for encouragement, to let someone know you're praying for them, or this could even make a really beautiful sentiment on a sympathy card as well. Now I'm using my liquid adhesive to adhere these vellum leaves both behind my wreath that I've created as well as on top so that I get multi-layered effects going on here. And I'm just putting little dots of liquid adhesive. I find that this liquid adhesive does great for adhering vellum if you use it sparingly. It's not too noticeable. And I am going to adhere my sentiment over the top of this top leaf cluster that I'm placing on top of my wreath, so I'm not too concerned about it. Now for my sentiment, this sentiment is all one stamp, but I've gone ahead and stamped it and cut it apart, and I'm adhering it on top of my wreath using some foam adhesive. And I'm just kind of positioning everything. I don't have my wreath adhered down to my ink blended panel just yet, but I'm going to do that in just a moment. Now, I felt like this "It Is Well" was not straight on my card, and I pulled it up, and in doing so, I ripped my leaf cluster, but that's okay. No one's gonna know when I put this back on my card. You're not, just me, you, and the internet, you know. No one will be able to see that it got ripped and then replaced, so don't worry about that. Now to adhere my wreath onto this panel, I'm using some more liquid adhesive. I've just put it on the left side of my wreath so that I don't have any adhesive kind of going off the edge of this panel that I've created. And I am using my T-square ruler to help me make sure I have everything on there straight. This is kind of tricky because there's so many layers, but once I have everything exactly where I want it, I will re-adhere this "It Is Well," and this time I'm gonna do it straight. So I've just stamped this in the Rocky Slope ink onto some heavyweight white cardstock, and I've added some foam adhesive behind it. There's nothing really super special about what I did with stamping the sentiment, but I wanted to keep it on that soft side. I didn't want anything too overpowering because the background itself and the wreath are really delicate. And this color combination really reminds me of some like French china or something like that. I'm not sure. Maybe it's the blue leaves. But I've never really done something like that before with some kind of different coloring for the leaves. And I really love how this card turned out. And my friend who saw the shirt said I nailed it. Now I've added some foam to the back of my card front that had some 5-inch wide Scor-Tape on it. So it's a piece of fun foam that's covered front and back with Scor-Tape. And I've added that onto a top folding A2 size card base created from some linen cardstock. I trimmed my cardstock to 4 1/4 by 11 inches and then scored it at 5.5 inches to create that top folding A2 size card base. And then I did a little fluffing or zhuzhing on the leaves to kind of make them stand up a little more. And to complete my flowers, I went ahead and pulled out an old school product here. This is gold glitter Stickles, and I'm just adding it to the center of my flowers and a few around my wreath kind of randomly, and that added just a touch of sparkle without it being too overwhelming. And that completes my card today that was inspired by a beautiful lady's shirt that I saw in Starbucks. Keep your eyes open for inspiration. It is all around you. I truly believe it. And you just kind of have to open your eyes to see all of the places that you can find inspiration. Take notes, snap pictures, and create cards. And a true friend will pose in front of a stranger so that you can take a picture of their shirt in the background. I'm just saying. As always, I will have links to the featured products used in this project in the description at YouTube. So if you're looking for something in particular, be sure that you check there. Or you can head on over to the coordinating blog post. I will have that linked in the description as well. Over there, you'll find more still shots, more information, and a complete list of supplies. I hope that this project has inspired you today and that the tips and tricks that I shared kind of help you to open your eyes to inspiration that's all around you and see all the beauty that's in the world that can really translate into card making. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications here on my YouTube channel. And I would love it if you would share this video with a friend. Thanks again for watching. And until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day.